All right, y'all, welcome back to Keepin the Comic, and we're diving back into Venom War's main storyline here with issue number 4. And it's here where we get to see the continuation of Venom bonding with both Eddie Brock and Dylan. We also get to see Flash Thompson make it to the garden, which, let me tell you, leads to a crazy moment here with Eddie Brock. And then Carnage, this dude establishes his mark in this one, which I gotta say, some of you guys may love it and others probably will hate it. So let's dive right into it here. So back in the Grand Arena, right, Spider-Man is back in his old suit and he's getting ready to go face to face with Bedlam. Now he wants to make this quick because he just got a call from Paul stating that MJ is in trouble, who we know is about to get swallowed up here by the arachnio that they were facing. We saw that back in Spider-Man's tie-in issue here to the series. But of course, Bedlam, homeboy's not trying to hear that. The good news for Spidey, though, is that he won't need to fight Bedlam for long because between Eddie, Dylan, and Venom, they got the perfect unison right now. That's when Venom comes in and tells us, he's like, I can feel them, referring to Eddie and Dylan. He's like two minds linked to his, two hearts beating in perfect syncopation, two hosts utterly in sync. We are at last a perfect family. Aside from the rage-drunk uncle he mentions, of course. Now, Eddie, he drills Bedlam directly in the face, while Venom mentions how Eddie's heart beats as no normal humans can, a steady purr, a dark engine, which makes sense since technically Eddie is no longer a typical human anymore anyways. He also mentions how Dylan's heart beats with all the power of youth, like a drum solo, and how he's so proud of Dylan. In fact, both Eddie and the Venom symbiote are so proud of Dylan, which is when Dylan jumps out and then he goes after Bedlam and slices him right under his neck with the Codex Blade. Now, the Codex Blade has the power to separate symbiotes from the King in Black Hive. So for Bedlam, who was another version of Eddie Brock, that effectively renders his own substance beyond his own control. And while our Eddie does not want to kill Bedlam, being that they've been through so much together, Dylan Brock, he's like, listen, I don't have a problem doing that whatsoever. But Venom is concerned because he's like, okay, well, if he does that, then what might that do to them? After all, Bedlam is an Eddie Brock. They don't want to just put him down like a dog either. But luckily for them, they don't have to, because Flash Thompson with the anti-Venom symbiote comes in and blasts the Bedlam symbiote, who all three of them, by the way, are very happy to see Flash Thompson. Now, Flash holds a very special place here for Venom because he remembers that Flash was the host that taught him how to be a hero. How Flash, of course, died only to be reborn again through the anti-venom, the healing force that is their destructive opposite. And being that Bedlam is a symbiote without a host, he becomes incredibly deadly to him. And within moments, the Bedlam symbiote is essentially gone, which then leads to the small little reunion between the group. They kind of get to regroup themselves here with Spidey letting them know, like, hey, I can't stick around. By the way, can I have some of that Venom symbiote to go along with it? You know, but then, of course, Eddie's like, no, I don't want any sort of distance between that. But of course, we know Spidey got to go save MJ. But before he could get out of there, Flash was trying to warn him about the zombiotes that are out there right now and how there's actually more of them than there was before. So Toxin is like, hold on, a lot of what did you say? Which then leads Eddie to being like, hold on for a second, like back up on this here. Zombiotes? Like, what are zombiotes? And it kind of just dawned on me that the entire time, right, that these guys have been inside in the garden fighting out and doing their own thing while everyone else is on the outside fighting these zombiotes. And within seconds, that whole army or a whole army of zombiotes bursted into the arena and immediately start to change the two announcers that were there throughout all of these shenanigans. And I'm just asking myself the question, like, why are these two announcers still here, man? But I guess the broadcast has to go on, right? Now, Venom knows, like, he's the only one that knows that what these things are, and being that he's now bonded with both Eddie and Dylan, they know now too. They know that this all started with Lee Price, someone who was once bonded with the Venom symbiote, how he was once dead, how a space vampire called the Captive, aka Threcker, turned him into a zombie, and when Meridius got his hands on that goo, That is how he was able to use that to create the K chemical, the K44, and then of course that led to these mindless zombiotes. But this is where things start to kind of take a little bit of a turn here because of the bond. There's no more secrets between the Brocks and Venom, right? And now Dylan knows about what Meridius had told Venom about the Absent Throne. Now, just for context, the Absent Throne was supposed to be a group, and I say that in quotations, but it was always only Meridius. He would manipulate different events across time. There is a manipulation of the symbiotes, right? Like using the hive mind to control the symbiotes and to undermine Eddie's activities. He coerced groups like Alchemax and the Life Foundation to push Dylan and the Venom symbiotes to their limits, to strengthen them, and then to use Bellum as well to even hunt down Dylan Brock. So Dylan is pissed off about learning about this because the Absent Throne, because think about it, right? The Absent Throne, Meridius used to kill Eddie Brock right in front of Dylan. And he knows how Meridius is a future version of Eddie, which now causes a problem because now Dylan is upset with Eddie, his dad, all over again. Now, speaking of Meridius here, we get to see him here at Alchemax with Carnage, and here we see that he knows that his zombiotes are at the Grand Arena and how Venom had learned to bond with both Brocks, something that he's very proud of, by the way. It's like, I'm surprised it kind of took him so long to be able to do this. Now, he wants the Venom symbiote even more back now, especially with Flash Thompson and the anti-Venom being able to cure the zombiote infection. So Carnage, seeing this opportunity, offers Meridius the opportunity to use a wild card of his own, which basically would be him using the All Blood, the Necro Spear that Carnage has. But Meridius is like, listen, nice try, Carnage, and kind of just dismisses him and tells him, like, listen, I am not that desperate yet. Now, back with the Brocks and Venom, the bond between them is starting to kind of get fractured a little bit here, because between Dylan's rage about this whole thing and between like Eddie's guilt and everything like that, like it's causing the Venom symbiote to have a difficult time here, because the Venom symbiote, he's already having a difficult time keeping the bond going in the first place. He's having to like expend a lot of energy here from keeping his consciousness from splitting apart with this dissension. And the zombiotes, they also keep coming and coming, and Venom doesn't want them to like ultimately end up making a mistake here. So when Dylan pulls out his blade again to attack some of the zombiotes, Flash Thompson stops him because he's like, listen, the hosts for the zombiotes, they're hostages. Well, at least the non-dead hosts, as we know, right? So Eddie teams up with Flash and is able to purge one of the announcers that was infected. Now, Dylan later on does the same, but then Dylan comes up with an idea. He's like, okay, listen, he mentions how they can fight them, referring to the zombiotes, but they can't fight Meridius, referring to the zombiotes not being able to fight Meridius, and how his dad is Meridius, right? So Eddie starts apologizing about it. He's like, listen, I've worked really hard here to prevent himself from becoming what Meridius ultimately would become here. And Dylan responds, he's like, listen, that's fine. I understand that. What I'm saying is that we might need a little bit of the Meridius from you to kind of show up right now, like how both of them are kings in black, and how if he controls the zombiotes like Meridius, then so can Eddie too. So the idea starts to form here in Dylan's mind, and he begins to pass that on to the rest of them there, you know, Venom and Eddie. Now, the only caveat to this here is that in order for this to work, the bond between the three of them cannot survive it, mainly because Venom doesn't think that he'll be able to survive based on what they're about to do. So Venom leaves Eddie. Now, while Eddie tells Flash, he's like, listen, I am going to need for you to trust me here. And he then tells him, he's like, listen, what I'm about to do is going to hurt. So then Venom lets us know that the first iteration of anti-Venom was formed of his residue, the Venom symbiote residue, and Eddie's white blood cells together. And even later on, anti-Venoms are fundamentally part of Eddie's body. And as King in Black, what belongs to Eddie is under his control. So whether it's symbiote or flesh, he has control of it. And even so, there's some Flash Thompson DNA that's kind of still clinging there, and also Flash's soul also. But with the healing power of the anti-Venom, how Eddie can isolate the other, which turns Flash, by the way, back into a human again. And you can see him being all ecstatic, like, yo, I'm human again, I'm human again. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Kier, what we see here with Eddie with anti-venom right now is dope as heck. Like, this is so dope. Now, for Venom and the other symbiotes, because of Dylan, right, the Codex is not a part of the King in Black Hive, and because he can also remove the symbiotes, you know, from that hive, his protection is able to extend to Venom and all the other symbiotes. But all the other symbiotes that are under the King in Black rule are now being touched by the anti-venom one by one. And Eddie is able to send out a psychic healing wave, and it's where it's starting to free now all the living hosts here from the zombiote infection. And then the dead hosts, they're now able to rest, removing the zombiotes from those hosts as well. I just said that twice, I don't know why. But one thought goes through Venom's mind, right? He's like, with Meridius being that absent throne that he is, master of the Garden of Time, he had to have had plans for this, right? Like plans upon plans within plans. So he's wondering, like, did he even have a plan for this? Which is when we pan back to Meridius, who is noticing that Eddie is king blocking him with the anti-venom. And if he continues to give him time, he's going to free all of the zombiotes. And we're seeing also one being free right next to him as well. So this is just kind of letting us know that the psychic wave, it is going even outside of the garden as well. Which ultimately for Meridius, he's like, this is gonna undo everything that I had planned for. So Carnage sarcastically is like, if only there was something that you could do. So he takes Carnage up on that offer, right? To get and take the all blood, the necrosphere, so that he can use it. And then he says, you think I haven't already lost my soul? You think I haven't waded through oceans of blood? I know I failed, Carnage, but with this, I can bring heaven down with me. And it's here where Venom can feel something changing. Everything twisting, their stomachs dropping, the feel of like rotten blood being poured into milk, which is quite the thought, by the way, I might add. This is where the healing wave starts to become a carrier wave, bringing something in back to the source, as he says. They can feel the anti-venom becoming perverted by the touch of something forged with deep magic and deeper evil, something red. Dylan is able to understand what it is immediately. He's like, Carnage. It's Carnage, he says, trying to urge Eddie on to keep fighting this, like fight this thing off. But Eddie, he's beginning to get consumed by this thing. And Eddie responds, yes, fight everybody, with, by the way, the same looking talk bubble as Bedlam, I might add. So I'm wondering if there's like a little bit of a thing there, or it could just be the simple fact that like, it's using Eddie's rage, and that's kind of what's turning him into like a Bedlam Carnage again. Just let's move on, guys. Now, the Carnage infection starts to spread, and it's fast, as Venom says. Now, while Dylan was yelling at Eddie to stop, it's here where we see old man Dylan above our current Dylan saying, I'm sorry, Dad. And then with like the split face, both of them are saying, I am so sorry. And it's here where Venom realizes that this was always meant to happen. The Venom War could only end, as he says, with the death of the King in Black, as we see Dylan Brock stab Eddie right through his chest. And I gotta say, wow, this was intense. Now, I don't fully like this, if I'm being very honest with you here, because it's kind of clear now how they're gonna be moving to use sort of like Eddie to eventually bonding with Carnage in the future. I think that's going to be coming out here in like a future run here in February. And I'm also seeing as well where it's kind of leading to where like Dylan might be the one taking over the Venom symbiote here for good. IDK, it's kind of just a prediction here, although there's a possibility that Venom could probably bond with Flash Thompson. I don't know. Either way, this was a crazy issue here, guys. What do you think about this? Leave it down below in the comments. Also, if you have not caught up here on the Venom War series so far, I have a playlist right over here to the left. Take a look at that. Also, check out our other videos here on the channel. Like this video here for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.